Hey guys, welcome back to the 20th podcast of the YTCA. Before we get started, I'll introduce myself. My name is Nick.
And Theo?
My name is Ezra.
Thank you guys so much for joining us once again. We hope that you guys are doing well so far. And I know that it's taking us longer to produce these podcasts, but we're again in the hopes of trying to produce higher quality podcasts for you guys so that you guys can enjoy them and make it more relatable to you guys. So please let us know what you guys think and how we did this time. And yeah. Before we get started, I wanted to talk about, we have a website with all the information, every single podcast uploaded. We have a lot of useful resources, such as, the national website for mental health awareness, things like that. If you guys want to check that out as well, we have it, and the link will be down below, as well as our Instagram, which will be updating you guys on anything that we're doing, whether, new podcasts, new events that we're hosting, anything. We'll let you guys know. And yeah, you guys can check it out, and that link will be down below as well. All right. So with that being said, this week we are going to talk about the idea of goals and how to set them, and how to follow through with them, because I think goals is something that everyone had, right? Everyone had goals. I mean, even if you didn't write it down, you still have goals, right? Honestly, the biggest goal, right, that humanity has is to survive, to put it plainly, right? We have to survive, right, on this earth. All right, but there are different other types of goals, right? And we're gonna give you guys some tips on how to follow through with them, how to set them. And I'll give you guys the first tip that I think is very important, which is set reasonable goals. Now I'm gonna try to break this up as best as I can, so you guys understand what I mean by reasonable goals, because that's kind of ambiguous. So the first thing is a time period is very important. Make sure that your goals are limited so that you will be actively going forward to achieve it. And I want to emphasize on this word actively, right? You don't want to just set it there, right? And then because you have so much time in front of you, just kind of leave it there and not do anything, right? I'll give you guys an example. If let's just say I have an AP exam, advanced placement test, right? I think all of you guys should know about what AP is, right? If I have an AP test in 14 days, right? I'm not going to say, hey, my goal is to study for the AP exam in 30 days, right? That's not going to make sense. Then, right, I will be wasting a lot of time because I think that, I have more time than I do to study, right? Meaning that I'll most likely slack off. And, this is very important because, this time period is what you have to work with, right? And that's how you're going to have to assign the amount of work that you got to work like each day or each hour, whatever your, period of measurement is. And of course, I want to address the other hand as well. Basically the idea that if you don't give yourself enough time to complete the task, right? If you don't give yourself enough time, that's going to cause trouble as well, right? Because you're going to feel overwhelmed or stressed, and you might not be able to have enough time to go through the material properly, right? You might think hey, I have done bad, right? I didn't try hard enough to accomplish this goal, but in reality, it's just because your time period that you set was enough. This really brings me to a really good point of the idea that though reaching a goal is important, what is also important, and I would argue just equally as important, is the fact that you should not ignore uh, the destination, right? You should not ignore, sorry, you should not ignore the journey that you have to take in order to get to the goal, right? It's the idea that you're learning from your process of doing, the process of reaching the goal, right? And you're understanding how to do certain things, right? For example, if I were to study for the AP exam, right? In the process of studying AP exam, I know how to manage my time better. I know how to do certain topics better, right? And in the end, I'll be able to get a good score on my AP exam, which is my goal, right? Something like that. I think the next point I want to make that's really important is make sure that it's not really ambiguous, right? Ambiguity is something that a lot of us struggle with. Making sure that it's clear. What I think your goal should be, and this is just personal opinion. This is just what I would personally do. The goal should be clearly defined so that if you give this to your parents, they should be able to read it and they should be able to understand clearly what you're trying to do. I think that is the standard, right? If you give this goal to someone else, they should be able to clearly understand, right? If they have no context at all, they should be able to understand what you're trying to do. Right? An ambiguous goal, right? For example, might be if I want to get stronger, right? I mean, it's a goal. I'm not saying it's not a goal. It's just very ambiguous, right? I want to get stronger, right? But someone else might read it like, how are you going to get stronger, right? How many times that day are you going to work out, like things like that, right? So like I might say, I'm going to run for 30 minutes every day from 5 to 5:30, right? That's very specific. And someone else might read it like, hey, oh, he's running from 5 to 5:30, right? He's actively trying to get stronger that way, right? They understand what they need to do. And of course, don't make it too specific as well. Everything I'm talking right now have this idea of moderation, right? You should not, make it so specific that's like, you're not seeing the big picture, right? If you're just doing, I don't know, like 20 minutes of bicep works out every single day, right? You're not working out your entire body, right? That's kind of the idea. Want to make it, make sure the balance is there, because balance is very important between the two. And the last thing I kind of want to talk about is making sub goals for your larger goal, right? Dividing it up, right? I think you guys have all heard of the term called divide and conquer, right? You take a big thing, a big task, right? Chop it up into small pieces, and then you do it small pieces at a time, and you'll be able to eventually do it, right? If you write a large essay, you write it one paragraph at a time. You don't, if you could write a whole thing out, right? If you have a 10-paragraph essay, but it's easier to chunk each of them at a time. So, again, I want to I kind of went into it in my previous point, but if sometimes the goal is too big, it's better to break it down into small sub goals. Right? For example, I'm going to go back to my AP exam, a topic, AP exam example. If I want to get a good score on the AP exam, I might want to break up everything they're going to ask into smaller topics so that I can cover them individually very well. Right? I think this way my process, my studying process, right, is more methodical. And therefore, I think obtaining my goal, which is getting a better score on my AP exam, becomes easier. Now let's do something like this, all right? Let's put everything together. The three things I mentioned about, making sure that, the goal should be limited. There should be a time period for it. It should not be ambiguous. And also you should make sub goals, right? Let's put these three things together and let's see how they work in sync. I'm going to give a personal example. So I took the AP Calculus BC exam last year, right? And my goal was to get a 5 on the AP exam. So how should I structure this goal with what I have, right? With everything I've talked about so far. The way that I would structure it is this. I want to say, if I want to get a 5 on the AP Calculus BC exam, I will study until one day before the test. And every day I will do 30 minutes of free response question practice and 30 minutes of multiple choice exam practice. And I will break down some of the topics if I need to understand them more, right? So let's examine them with the criteria. What's the time period, right? I specifically stated I'm going to study until one day before the exam. And is it too ambiguous? No, because I specifically stated what am I going to do and how much time I'm going to spend on them. And finally, I did say that I was going to break them down into small topics if I needed help. Right? I didn't just say, hey, I'm just going to practice this entire test. No, I'm breaking it down to the two portions, right, that they usually question. And I think that is something very important.
I really agree with Nick here about setting sub goals for a larger goal. Oftentimes, when I break up a big goal into small achievable goals, I'm able to get the goal down. So, our first tip that Nick shared was to set reasonable goals. The second tip that I will give to you is to monitor your progress. Now, how do we monitor our progress? Well, I think to monitor progress means to take periodic tests and reflect on the results of these tests. For example, if you have the goal of running a race in a certain amount of time, you don't want to do it blind or run it for the first time. You're probably going to get a bad score that way. You want to run the same race over and over again so you can prepare for it and see how well you are doing on your time or speed. This illustration I gave is kind of like doing systematic or periodic tests. You want to do practice tests of the actual thing so you can see what you did well and what you did wrong. It's better to find out how well you do on a practice rather than seeing how well you do on the finished product, especially if you fail. So now that we know we should take these practice tests, what should we do after we take them? Well, you should actually reflect on your progress, because if you just take them without any reflection, you're probably not going to go anywhere. So if you show positive progress on these practice tests that you do, you know what works for your goal, right? Because you've been doing this and you get a certain result. So if you do this more, you'll probably will achieve your goal, right? And a second good thing about that is that you also feel motivated, right? Like let's say you want to work out, right? And you see that you're taking these BMI tests and you're seeing that your fat mass is decreasing. You're like, wow, my hard work's actually paying off. I'm getting more muscle, right? So it makes you feel motivated. However, there's the converse. If you show negative or no progress, it sometimes is frustrating, right? Because it means that, oh man, my hard work is wasted, right? So that feels pretty bad. But just know that, you have you're probably going to experience a lot of failures before you achieve your actual goal. And it's only those who are persistent that, they actually achieve their goal. And one of my teachers told me Rome was not built in a day. And just one practice test does not, define you. It does not mean that you can't achieve your goal if you fail on the practice test. So you have a lot of time, right? You can keep trying. So I want to give you the example of studying for the SAT. I know Nick mentioned AP exam. I'm going to do something similar to that. So studying for the SAT at first, it seems really daunting. It's like a 4-hour test, right? And like your brain may turn to jello by the end of it. Well, at least for me, my brain did. When I took the SAT for the first time, my brain was really like fried. And then, I felt that I sat on the chair for too long. I would sometimes joke with my friends that, it's called the SAT because you have to sit for like a really long time. So that's why I really don't like the SAT, but I kind of have to take it. So what did I do? I broke my goal down of getting a decent score on the SAT. So and I started to study for each skill that I lacked after I took this practice test. So just to backtrack, you may want to take a diagnostic test before you like do anything. Like if you want to do the goal of doing well on the SAT, just take a diagnostic test first, see how well you do, and then start studying in the specific areas that you lack. So as for me, I struggled in English and grammar more than the math section. So I got a practice book for English and grammar, read it, did some practice problems, and then after a while, I would take another practice SAT test. Now, when I took it, it seemed that my score did not improve. I was like, what's happening, man? I took this test and I studied for it, and how come it's not improving? I felt really discouraged. But, I'm like, it's a practice, right? I just had to keep trying harder, rework my strategy, and I'll do better. So I actually reworked my strategy and I did slightly better. So to backtrack, the tip that Nick gave was to set reasonable goals, while my tip was to monitor your progress by doing periodic tests.
I think that's a really great point. Keeping track of how you're doing and how you're progressing, whether good or bad, is always a good way to make sure that what you're doing is worthwhile and also how you can improve. Right. I think when you can look at your own progress or the progress that you're making along the way and you can appreciate how far you've come, or if you're not doing so well, you can analyze what you're doing wrong. Both those skills, both those realizations are really good for motivating you. And I think this is more of a way to kind of make sure that you're making good progress rather than falling behind. I know that Theo, you mentioned really reflecting on what you did. If you did something wrong, maybe try to fix it. But I think for this third tip that I'm going to give, it's finding a good environment to work in. Now, obviously, this is subjective depending on the type of person you are and the type of work you're doing, right? Now, yeah, there's no set definition for a good working environment. Everyone works better under different conditions, so something that works for one person may not work for you. So for this point, I'm going to try to give like 3 kind of sub points to that you can experiment with to figure out the best working conditions for you. Point number 1 is to find a comfortable working space. One of the most important parts of a good working environment is the quality of your workspace. Now, it may seem trivial, but things like room temperature, lighting, furniture, and even air quality are all salient factors to productive work. In fact, in a study conducted on office employees, things like open space office room temperature, and even like colors were all factors that helped them work better. So like think of it like this. If you're in a room trying to maybe work on some homework or trying to get something done on the computer and it's really hot or your seat's uncomfortable, those factors are going to dampen your working experience, lowering motivation, making it more cumbersome to maintain those healthy habits that you want to build up. When thinking about the physical working space, try experimenting with what makes you most comfortable and productive. If you struggle to work at home, maybe try moving some furniture around and see where you can get good lighting or ventilation. Or maybe try working somewhere else completely, like a library or a Starbucks. Or maybe if you're trying to work somewhere else, or maybe if you're trying to keep at a comfortable temperature, like yeah, like before I said, libraries and Starbucks are great since they're always air conditioned. And usually libraries are pretty quiet. Usually. Um, Point number two that I want to make is focusing on keeping a strong mental mindset and taking away distractions. When okay, sorry. Another important factor to look out when testing out different working environments is to get rid of distractions. More than anything, the mood of a place will ultimately determine how effectively you work. For example, if you're planning on making a workout routine, going to the gym can be helpful for keeping focus since you're surrounded by other motivated people. However, if the gym environment makes you feel uncomfortable because you might be seen as fat or you don't like the way your body looks, those kinds of worries can distract you and can distract you from the main point of your goal, which is to lose weight or to gain muscle, right? The key point is that you have to find an environment that puts you into that focused mindset and has little distractions as possible. Whether that means finding a quiet place at home or going to the library or gym, the most important idea is that you should focus on getting rid of these distractions. And point number three, set goals along with other people. I think this is probably one of the most important and one of also the hardest things to do because when we attempt to make strong goals and good habits, one thing that we tend to do is we tend to keep it to ourselves. Maybe it's because we're embarrassed that we're trying to improve the skill, or maybe that we don't feel like we want others to know that, this is something I need to work on, right? But I think when you tell someone about what you're trying to improve, how you're trying to improve yourself, uh, you can fully express what you're trying to get done and really verbalize it, which is good in itself because when you verbalize something, you really get to process it in your brain rather than just kind of thinking about it and like getting caught up in like an echo chamber kind of thing. And then B, you also get accountability because if that person knows, assuming they're a trusted like friend or family member, they know that you're trying to achieve this goal and they can help you by keeping you accountable, making sure that you're keeping up the pace, you're not slacking off, and you're also not pushing yourself too hard. I think setting goals with other people around you and making sure that other people know about these life improvements that you want to make is so motivational because people know about like your improvements and can keep you accountable, and it's just a great way overall to verbalize your own thoughts. So those are kind of the 3 points that I wanted to cover for my tip of, finding a good working environment, testing out what works and what doesn't work, and ensuring that, you have a good communication going on with people.
I think those 3 points that we gave today are really good. Again, just to recap, our 3 points today are, to set reasonable goals, there to monitor your progress, and also to, find a good environment. And, we give you guys some sub points as well. But yeah, just remember, those three are kind of the three big tips that we gave today. And I think those are really going to help you elevate, your goal making skills and, help you, make meaningful goals. And speaking of that, if you guys need help creating goals or need help, even keeping track of the goals, right? We actually do have a small group session that we host every Sunday. And Ezra, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So our small group is kind of this group of friends and other high schoolers who want to get to know each other better. I know we're gonna go back to school soon, or at least hopefully. But it's just been overall kind of hard to connect with other people on the online environment. So we wanted to kind of provide a space where people can talk, where people can be open with each other and talk about not only their problems but just have fun and to have friends during the pandemic, because you know it is still a pandemic and there are still risk factors when hanging out with people IRL. So if you guys want to get to know us better, we would love to get to know you better. Then yeah, come on down, join us on Sundays at 4 p.m. And yeah, we'll have a great time.
Yeah, definitely. The link for the interest one will be down below. You guys, if you guys want to join, please check that out. Also, down below is a form that you can tell us how we did, and anything else you want to tell us about, in the comments as well. But yeah, thank you guys for coming. Remember the 3 tips that we gave you guys, and we hope that you guys have fun making goals, and you guys make meaningful goals that will impact your life. With that being said, thank you guys for listening, and I hope that you guys learned something from today. All right. And yeah, hope that we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.